Hey folks, Dan Ritter here, and if you're like me, you've been cooped up in the house a few days, and if you're also like me, you're probably not sure what else you could possibly do with eggs. So I'm going to share one of my favorite recipes to do at home, something that's super easy, and you probably have everything you need already. If not, I'll talk about a couple of replacements you can always use when you are making this, and this is just a simple French toast. Now, most people have done a French toast before, but for me, it's kind of that moment where you wake up and you say, I have no idea how I can eat another egg, like I said a minute ago. And you got to figure out, well, what are you going to do about it? So this recipe is a super simple one, and we'll talk through all of the different pieces of the puzzle here and get started. So let's talk about ingredients. You need some kind of bread. So I was at the store, I guess last week before everything started to go crazy and shut down, and I was in this mood for St. Patrick's Day, so I grabbed an Irish soda bread in addition to like a full corned beef and some cabbage. Now, I made the corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day, but did not do anything with the soda bread. So that's what I'm gonna use. You can really use any type of loaf of bread, whether it's sliced bread or baguette, French loaf, things like that. You gotta get creative with some of those like baguette smaller breads, but if you have a nice sliceable bread, it'll work really well for you. You're also going to need a 1/4 cup of milk. I'm using almond milk because I have a dairy sensitivity, but you can use any type of milk you have for this. 1 egg. Then you're going to need vanilla extract, some maple syrup, and your spices. Now, traditional French toast is going to have a cinnamon spice, but I like to change it up a little bit. I'm doing a chai spice this time. Chai spice is easy to put together if you have all the ingredients. If not, choose your favorite spice, cinnamon, cardamom, whatever you have going on there. For this spice blend, I've put together 2 teaspoons of cardamom, 2 teaspoons of ground clove, 2 teaspoons of nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of allspice, and then because I like mine a little bit sweeter, I've done 4 teaspoons of ginger and 6 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now, of course, you can get all of these as their individual pieces and grind them in the mortar and pestle. That is not what I did. I bought them pre-ground, and then I just mix them up in a little jar. So to get started here, we're going to, first of all, make sure we have all of our tools needed. So we have a nice kind of shallow dish here that we can mix and soak our bread in. Of course, we have our cutting board to go with our bread, have a small whisk, a half teaspoon for measuring some things out, and of course a serrated knife for cutting the bread up. Now, I also have a cup of tea because I am who I am. So always nice to have a little something you can sip on while you're making that. It's morning, so I'm going with tea and not something a little more strong or exciting. So let's jump right in. So for our Irish soda bread, or whatever bread you're using, if you need to slice it, make sure that you have a nice, like I said, sharp serrated knife. Now, one little trick, if you are slicing a soda bread or some type of loaf like this, I always encourage you to start in the middle and work out. The reason for that is, if you don't use a whole loaf, you can push the 2 sides together, as you'll see in a minute, and that helps it not go stale in between uses. So you're going to slice out, in this case, this recipe calls for 4 slices. I like them a little thicker because, you know, I want my French toast to be a little luxurious. So as you're slicing through, make sure you get 4 really good slices, or however many you're going to try to do. Just remember, if you're doing more than 4 slices, you're going to need to up some of the amounts in the recipe. Pull my 4 slices together, and here's what I was talking about. When you have these extra pieces left, if you go from the inside out, you can push them together and then wrap them up so that you're not going to have them go stale on you after you're done with them. Okay, so we've sliced our bread up here, and we're going to set that to the side for now. And we're going to work on the dip that we're doing here. Dip's not a great word for it, but the egg mixture, if you will. So like I said, you need 1 egg, some milk of some type, and that can be any type of milk you have. Like I said, I use a milk alternative, an almond milk, because of my sensitivity. Whole milk is delicious in it, but also maybe a little bad for you. But whatever you prefer for your milk, use that. But we're going to start with an egg here. We're going to crack it. Now, there's all kinds of schools of thought for cracking an egg. A lot of people talk about the fact that, you know, you don't want to crack it on a countertop, you don't want to crack it however people like to do it. I'm a countertop cracker because I feel like I get a better crack and I'm less likely to see the egg shatter. But It's totally up to you. Some people do it on the edge of something, whatever. I just get a good clean crack when I do it straight onto the countertop. Whisk that up a little bit, get it nice and mixed, and then we're gonna add our spice to it. So like I said, I make my own chai spice. The recipe calls for a half teaspoon of spice. I'm gonna do a little heaping half teaspoon. Sprinkle it in throughout, just like that. And then it calls for a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So there's all kinds of vanilla extracts out there. There's super fancy ones that I'm sure are absolutely delicious. I grew up on your old-fashioned, just like pure grocery store McCormick type stuff. So I'm not too fancy when it comes to that. But you want to whisk that in with your spices and your egg, kind of get it nice and blended through, just like that. You know, just... And then we're gonna add our milk. So I did a little over a quarter cup of milk, but really quarter cup should be enough. My pieces of bread are a little bit thicker, so that's why I upped that a little bit. So we just put it in here, whisk it all together. You wanna have it pretty well blended so that when you dip your bread in, you're getting flavor and an even mixture of egg and milk and spice across every piece. Just like that. And then, once you feel like you've blended pretty well, we're gonna pull our bread back over here. And we're gonna start dipping it. So you wanna make sure you dip it long enough on each side to really absorb a lot of that mixture. So get it in there and get it nice and deep. Let it absorb a lot of that egg and milk and spice. Just like this. And yes, don't worry, I did in fact wash my hands very thoroughly before I did this, as you should too. Whether or not we're in the middle of a pandemic, you should still wash your hands before you cook things, all right? Let's just make sure we can agree on that. It's really just a sound policy. So we put in, and this is you can see it's soaking it up really, really nicely. There's gonna be just enough of it to get this last piece well coated. Now again, you can choose what spices you like to do. Some people like to do just a plain cinnamon spice. The chai spice to me just makes it a little more interesting, and you'll see later we're gonna do a little bit of a spicy maple syrup with some more of that chai spice, just to give it a little bit more depth and flavor than it might otherwise have. So as you can see, we have taken care of getting our bread nice and dipped here. And we're going to head over to the skillet and cook it up. I'm using a flat griddle, but you can use any type of large non-stick pan, and I'm gonna end up cooking it in batches of 2, just because I don't want to overwhelm the griddle with too much at once. Make sure we get enough good heat here. I'm using a little bit of ghee as kind of a coating for the skillet, a very small amount. You can use butter, you can use oil. If you really feel confident about your non-stick pan, you may not need anything at all, but I think it adds a little bit of flavor, which is kind of nice too. And again, doesn't have some of those dairy milk solids in it, which are problematic for me. So as this warms up, I'm just gonna kind of spread the ghee around. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you don't want your skillet to be too hot. Kind of a medium-high heat here is gonna be the best option, because it's gonna get it nice and warm, but you don't wanna have it so hot that you get just burned on the outside without some of the good stuff that's soaked in on the inside. Fully cooked there. Gonna flip our bread over. It's been soaking together really nicely. And I'm gonna test it. Yeah, still warming up. Just kind of put a corner of it into the skillet as it's getting heated. If you hear that nice sizzle, it means it's nice and hot and ready. But otherwise, you're gonna wanna hang on for just a minute more to get it nice and hot. A little bit of a sizzle, that means we're ready. So I'm gonna put our first couple pieces here. We're gonna let those sit for 1-2 minutes, let them get nice and heated up there over the griddle. We want it to be well browned on both sides so that the egg has enough time to cook through. It gives you that nice crispiness on the outside. Okay, so while those finish up, let's talk about the syrup. A lot of people love just doing straight syrup onto your French toast, which is great. I have no problems with that at all. But I like to, kick it up a little bit. So we're gonna add a little bit of spice, not a lot, because we don't want to mess with it too much, and it's kind of can be hard to get a lot of syrup, or a lot of spice into the syrup. So I'm gonna take about a 1/4 cup of maple syrup, not a lot, because we don't really need a lot of syrup on this. It's got a lot of flavor to it naturally. I'm going back to my chai spice and do just a 1/2 teaspoon, this time pretty level, into my syrup. Now, may not seem like a lot, but we don't really need it to have a ton of flavor on its own. We're just trying to kick it up just a little bit. So we just whisk that in nicely to your flavor. I like to do it into a Pyrex measuring cup just because it makes it easier to pour later, and Pyrex is easy to clean and all that kind of stuff. Also, handle makes for ease of whisking. We have all that together. While the toast finishes up a little bit, I do want to talk for a second about my love for recipe books. So we definitely live in the age where we can find recipes online all the time. It's super easy to find them, download them, look through and find exactly the right one. But in spite of that, I really, really love cookbooks. I get that from my mom, who had collected them and used them for years. Some of our favorites right now that we are cooking out of a lot are, of course, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, which is just an absolutely incredible book, not just for recipes, but just for learning about the art of food. And then, of course, Where Cooking Begins by Carla Lawley Music, who's part of the Bon Appetit family. She's amazing, and we love watching her, but we've really enjoyed using her cookbook. It's super accessible and super easy to use. And then also, you know, I actually have this great recipe book that my mom put together for all the cousins and my sister and me several years ago. Has all the family recipes in it. Everything that we grew up cooking all in one place, which was really lovely. And then lately, I actually purchased a recipe journal that is divided by like types of food, and it's completely blank. And I've been taking a lot of the recipes that we love from our family recipe book and all these other cookbooks that we enjoy and putting them in one place. It just makes it really easy for finding recipes that we love right there in one place, which is fantastic and makes it a little bit easier than having to flip through all the different books to find that one recipe. So I highly encourage you to think about buying some recipe books and cooking out of those, and not just on the internet, because you can get a really lovely collection of recipes that, again, not all of them are going to be online. So love cooking from those too. Sounds like I think our toast is done, so let's get it off the griddle and plate it. I love plating things on something that's different from my normal servingware or just my day-to-day stuff, because it looks nice. Maybe it's a little ridiculous, but I'm just going to take some of this really delicious looking French toast. We're going to put it on the plate here together. I got some of them really nice and crispy too. So, big fan of that. And then give this a nice whisk. And we'll add our syrup to it and enjoy. Well, I hope you've enjoyed cooking with me, and maybe you'll find some time this week to create something like this for yourself, just to change up some of the monotony of being stuck in your home as we work through this together. As always, I love connecting with you over social media, and of course you can reach me by phone or email. We're all in this together, even if we have to be in it together separately. Let's see how we did. Oh, that's delicious. Remember, who you work with matters. Make it a great day.